Fuck off.
Alistaire's here now. It's official. You can't go anywhere.
Damn it. What did I do
I don't
anyway?
make the rules. I just summon the demon. All right, before we start today, is there anything we need to go over? Getting to Dereleft is the end of the first major arc, so you all get to do the major, significant, and minor milestone stuff, which is you get a point of refresh. You can rename your high concept if you want. You can raise the bonus of one of your stats by 1. All of that stuff. Is that good? Has everybody got that?
I think so, yeah. I think I did that
Pulling
one.
up all of my things on my computer real fast. Oh, excuse me. Okay.
So if you haven't spent a ton of your refresh, you should be at a refresh of 4 now.
There we go. Oh.
Really? I'm at
Yeah.
2.
How many stunts do you have?
1, 2, 3, 4.
That's
All right,
why.
so now you should be at 3.
Now I should be at 3. Okay.
So the first 3 stunts are free, and then they cost 1 refresh. Because they're basically a permanently spent fate point. It's like the advantage of stunts, because you don't want to do nothing to get them to work.
Mm-hmm.
But fate points can be spent on anything as long as you can justify them. Otherwise, yeah, if everybody is ready, I'm going to do the cold open.
I'm ready.
Okay, I don't
You
hear
really
any
want a cookie?
objections. You don't want me to cook? God damn it.
You shouldn't have said something. You reminded me they exist.
Go get them afterwards.
Yeah, but I want one now.
I gotta take my
Afterwards,
sweatshirt
I'll
off.
be
I can't
making
deal with
dinner.
you.
See, I was a
What?
fool and I didn't bring home enough for myself, so now they're all at my parents' house. I can't.
Oh.
It took 3 days. 3 days to finish all the shit that my mom and I made. It was so much. We made so many.
Oof.
Seems like too many cookies.
I mean, I had 15 boxes to make for my friends, and I think my mom made like 20 boxes, so we had like, I think there was one kind of cookie, we made 150 of them.
Damn.
That sounds exhausting.
It was very tiring, but everyone has been really nice about it and excited to get them, so.
Excellent.
That's what I wanted. I feel like I updated my character sheet to not have being sucked dry on there anymore, so I'm assuming that was what I did before finishing last session.
Probably. That sounds correct. I updated the note sheet with a bunch of information that will come up during play. You can peruse at your leisure. The characters will also be talking about it too, so it's not like it's going to be completely out of the blue. You don't need to do homework or nothing. But otherwise, yeah. A moment of silence for the dearly departed, and then I will do the cold open. Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Drow and Dracoliches here on your favorite radio station, Role-Playing Public Radio. You know what? We should consider getting a radio broadcast for Role-Playing Public Radio, because then it would be an actual radio station and not just something you download from your favorite place you get podcasts. I, of course, am your host, Bridget. My pronouns are she, her, and I am running the game that is more or less Dungeons & Dragons. It's just we took out all of the Dungeons & Dragons rules and just left the dragons. And also apparently the pits and doors that are the bane of players everywhere. Speaking of players, start in Discord order. Can you remind everybody who you are and what character you're playing?
I'm Faye, you know who I am. I'm playing Rushk. You know who she is.
I'm Rachel. I'm playing Daelia and Volsa, being sneaky questionable.
I am Lydia, or Winter, depending on who you ask. I am playing Xastra Telarr, Drow Paladin of Eilistraee, and I have, since the last session, taken my 5th and final aspect. Rushk can no longer be trusted.
Ooh,
Yay!
fancy that.
It's exciting. I love when the party causes conflict to themselves. So when we last left our intrepid heroes, we had just gotten past a pit and a door, which I expected it to take 20 minutes and took the entire episode. And now we are on the final approach to Dereleft. So now there's no more conflicts or obstacles to getting into Dereleft. We get to see Dereleft proper.
No conflict except between ourselves.
And between yourself with yourself, for some of you.
So, I do have something I would like to do the last time we
Okay.
rest before we get to Derelift.
Well, you're not resting before you get to Derelift. Did you want to do it now?
I will just do it now then. So, when she has a spare moment,
Well,
she'll remove from her bag the crystal, and,
the memory crystal that we've been hanging on to since session 1.
yep, thinking of Nyara, she will say,
Mhm.
I remember the caring warmth of his embrace.
Okay. And then I assume you'd also do the other thing that's required with the crystal?
I do not remember what the other thing is, but yes.
You have to crush it in your hand.
Yes.
Okay. Do you believe sincerely in the words you've spoken?
Yes.
Okay. Can I have you roll some fate dice, applying the highest of whatever your ability scores is?
That would be charisma.
Okay. Just let me know what number you get.
It's 5-9.
9. Excellent. That is a fantastic success. So you grip the crystal in your hand, you think of Nyara, and you say out loud, I remember the caring warmth of your embrace, and crush the crystal in your hand. And you can feel a change in the world. I can't put your finger on what that means, but just something is different. Fundamentally so. It's like the air tastes different, or there's a presence you can now sense. There's a color you can now see. It's difficult to quantify, but you have done something to fundamentally alter Faerun. When you come back to the rest of the party, everyone is staring at you, especially Taltree. She has a protective arm around Nyara, and she's glaring daggers at you. She says, what did you do?
Something I felt I needed to.
Nyara looks a little out of it. He looks kind of very, very tired, but also his eyes are kind of wide as he just sort of stares at everything around him. He seems very disoriented. Taltree kind of presses you further, and she's like, I appreciate your commitment, but these are things that must be handled with an amount of care.
Of course.
Don't do that again. Not without asking me first.
She will incline her head.
So Taltree puts 2 arms, one hand on each of Nyara's shoulders, kind of steers him like you would a sleepy cat as you make your way towards their left. So you come out
Xastra,
of...
sorry, before we continue. Have you ever seen, I may have made this comparison before, have you ever seen the way that the wolves at the zoo will look at a baby on the other side of the plexiglass?
Yes.
That's how Rushk is looking at you.
This makes perfect sense. She
That's all.
smiles.
Rushk.
Unity,
Yeah.
teamwork, the bonds of friendship. These are all things that only apply to you as we move. So you come out of the winding tunnels that were at the bottom of the Mage Tower, and you enter a massive cavern. It is like a gigantic hollow in the earth, the size of I don't know, a small mountain. It is extremely impressive. The edges of it stretch far beyond the lights lighting up Derelift, and it seems to be a sparkling and fantastic city, or it might have been at one point. A enormous stalagmite grows as a stone column from the floor of the cavern, straight up towards the top of the cavern, where the seawater used to drip in from, but is now coming down in a torrent. And in a helical structure, starting at the top and winding its way around, is Derelift proper. At the top, it is capped by a castle created from polished black stone and lit by glowing blue fire torches. And it causes such an effect where the surface mirrors the light, making it look as though it glows like a brilliant sapphire gem at the capstone of the city. From the walls of the cavern where you are now are very precarious walkways about an ox cart in width, that extend from various levels to about the middle of Derelict. And Taltree, unconcerned with the rest of you, steers Nyara onto it and starts down the walk. Further along it, about halfway between where you are now and the city itself, just a bit of a walk, there is some kind of metal structure that is like a barricade / gate kind of thing built onto it. If you look around at all of these different arms that connect to the center of Derelict, you can see they also have these sort of things. This must be a checkpoint system that protects people coming into and out of the city. The city grows in size as you start at the top and goes to the bottom and becomes less opulent. Just underneath the Shining Sapphire Castle is a bunch of what you are sure is the rich people part of Derelict, where the more important houses must live, and various polished silver structures. It looks like they are showing off what wealth Derelict used to have. And below that, the areas grow thicker, and you can see evidence of like larger structures that probably house some kind of industrial work and things like that near the bottom. And the lowest level is completely flooded in a whirlpool of seawater that is fed from the cascading waterfall of salt water above. It pours down from a massive crack in the side of the top of the cavern and just pools around the base. It is likely that Derelict used to go through all kinds of places on the bottom of the cavern that are no longer accessible, and instead that's what's struggling to drain the seawater. If you could visit other parts of the Underdark, there are undoubtedly similar tragedies elsewhere. So, what do you do?
What's Vajra doing? I kind of want to look at, because in theory, her job is going to be patching that up. I kind of want to gauge her reaction to seeing the size of the leak.
Vajra is just kind of like slack-jawed, just looking at this like cascading pool of water. First off, it is a miracle that it has not just exploded in the sea, has just come in completely. That's amazing, given the the ocean weighs a lot and the pressure is enormous. The fact that Derelict is not just completely underwater is considerable. But that speaks to how much more work is going to be required. Like, if this is the height of magical power they have, and all of it has done is extend it to this, then how much more effort is it going to take to fix it? Shiria, likewise, just is kind of overwhelmed by everything. She's never really seen a proper Underdark city. She's only been down to Skullport. So this is both fantastic and terrible at the same time. You can see her looking at the swirling whirlpool around the base of Derelict, and she's just covering her mouth as though she can understand the extent of the loss that must have happened when this disaster began.
Interesting. How far out is Taltree even acknowledging us at this point, or is she just kind of going ahead?
She's just going kind of slowly, because she's she's guiding our Nyara, but otherwise, yeah, she doesn't really pay attention to what you're doing. You must just assume that you're going to follow her, or she's making you follow by increasing the pace ahead of you.
Given that there seems to be a checkpoint, I'm going to try and stick close to Taltree.
Okay. So when you get to the checkpoint, it's like I said, it's a structure that is built along this sort of walkway, and it sort of clamps onto it. Literally, like if you had a beam of wood and you put a C-clamp on it, you know how it's like that? Imagine that it was on the sides, and so it forms a little doorway. And that doorway of course, has big swinging shut gates. So they pull a little slot on it so that they can see across, and you see a heavily armored Drow guard speak in a masculine voice who goes there. This is, of course, in Drow, for those of you who can speak that. Taltree names herself as the High Protector of Derelict and shows them some kind of symbol she has on her person. And they swing the gate open, no more questions asked.
Interesting.
As you pass through, you notice that there are several also heavily armed drows here. They have spears and crossbows. And it is particularly heavy armament. So if you attempted to come down this area like, willy-nilly, you probably would have died horrific deaths, either immediately being pierced by the weapons or, falling to your death from the incredible height you're at.
We'd never fall into a pit or a chasm. That's no.
Never gonna happen.
No. Surely this will never come up again.
We are masters of gravity.
So you clear the checkpoint with very little issue. They do kind of look at you strange, but less because some of you are not Drow and more that you're just foreigners at Derelift. You get the idea that maybe Derelift has not had tourists in quite a while.
That makes sense.
Being cut off for a century would do that, probably.
Maybe a little bit. Okay, we've cleared the checkpoint. What do you want to do now?
Is Taltree giving... Sorry to interrupt. Unless somebody has something else,
No.
then... All right,
No.
yeah. Is Taltree giving any indication of what's going on, or is she still just kind of leading the way?
She's still just kind of leading the way. I mean, if you wanted to ask her questions, you
Yeah,
could.
given that she's still giving us the cold shoulder, I think Rushk will kind of try and change pace to be about at shoulder with her. Say something along the lines of... So we've arrived at Derelift, and I understand that you might be a little bit sour after what our traveling companion decided to do on her own. But perhaps could you enlighten us as to what the plan of approach is?
It's very simple. We will take Nyara back to his chambers, and then we will formally introduce you to the Senate.
I see. And do you expect that to take all day?
She kind of stops and shuffles her feet a little bit and says, it will depend on what sort of mood the senators are in.
I see. Well, assuming it doesn't take all day, rather assuming it does take all day, would there be time to freshen ourselves up? We aren't exactly in the most presentable state.
Of course. There's no way I would introduce you to polite society without at least having you take a bath. And she kind of wrinkles her nose a little bit at you.
Yeah.
She's like, fresh clothes and things of that nature will be provided for you when we reach the Siavel estate.
Rushk nods and says thank you, and then continues following.
Okay. If nobody has anything they particularly want to do, I'll just narrate your little trip up to Nyara's place. Otherwise, if you want to do something, let me know now.
I think we're still kind of on eggshells right now.
Yeah, I think.
Okay.
I think anyone who's paying attention noticed that Xastra was similarly awestruck to what the Shiria, the way that Shiria
Really?
was, but she very quickly hid that.
Has Xastra not... I guess what Zastra's more
She
upset
hasn't
about
been
would be
here
the loss
before.
of... Yeah. Also the loss of life, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, gauging the three of you to be very important and ambassadors to Derelift who are going to have to present something or other soon, Zunan Devere, one of Nyara's protectors, one of the Drow, kind of gets all three of you together and begins explaining things about Derelift as you make your way through the various places. She lets you know that the walkways you're on now are referred to as the arms of Derelift. They didn't used to be used very much, but some things happened in the last 100 years that made them quite attractive and also are necessary for travel in and out of Derelift now. The arms connect to the middle point of Derelift, which is known as the Embrace. It's where the middle class-ish of Derelift lives. It's where people who are artisans and other quote-unquote skilled labor resides. As you go up from there, you reach the place known as the Silver Stair, and this is where you see more individualized estates that are all themselves gated communities. You notice that while Derelift obviously has suffered a lot of damage for various reasons, The estates in the Silver Stair are meticulously taken care of. It is likely that a significant amount of the city's resources have been spent on making the estates immaculate, and they all have very high and very strong walls around each individual house's estate. They are combination like flex and fortresses in a way, because you can see that although they are designed to show off the wealth of the people that live inside, there are legit some murder holes in the walls that add window level. You imagine that attempting to visit one without an invitation would be a very unpleasant experience, to say the least. As you head up to the Silver Stair, you reach what is known as the Sapphire Star, and this was at one point in time the seat of power of Dereleft, and still is, but it used to be entirely belonging to Lolth. All of the statues in commemoration and worship of the goddess have been removed and have been broken down and repurposed into something else. The ground has been unconsecrated. And as a castle, it has had, in the past, two different walls. It has an outer wall and an inner wall. The outer wall is almost completely demolished, and as by order of Queen Celestia Vale, it has not been reconstructed. Xenon lets you know that this was destroyed during the Unification Act of Dereleft and was not replaced. The inner wall, all too, has seen damage, but you can see that it is from rocks that have fallen from the ceiling when the sea opened into Dereleft. It fell straight on the spire and rolled down, and so it took much of the inner wall and one of the buildings with it. So there is a scar on the essentially royal palace that has not been fixed. But the rest of the Sapphire Star itself is, frankly, quite stunning. The polished black stone has almost a mirror sheen that you can see yourself in, and it causes the very few interior lights to really brighten up the space in a way that is quite breathtaking. As you enter the structure proper, you can see various members of House Yvail out doing their work. There is support staff, maids and butlers and that kind of thing. There's also house guards, and then a significant number of people that belong to House Yvail that have more esoteric jobs, like training their militia and things like that. So Taltree breaks from you here. She takes Nyara somewhere upstairs, and a well-dressed drow woman comes to meet you and says, "Hello, I will be your aid for your stay at House of Vale. If you would all please follow me this way, I will show you to your lodgings and then to the baths." And you can see her keep a straight face.
Okay.
It is very likely that after, several days in the Underdark and causing problems, none of you smell particularly well.
I love smelling like sulfur and death.
Yeah, it's great.
Out of
I'm
curiosity,
very much looking forward to this bath.
Out of curiosity, how do they react to Daelia? Because Daelia is kind of a big deal.
It's true.
Even if nobody knows who Daelia is, right?
Lots of staring. Because Daelia is, kind of looks like a surface elf, but also in a way that everybody sort of knows what that's about. Because everybody is albino drow, and so a couple of people make religious signs when you pass them.
Huh.
Others just stare with curiosity. Children point, but people you meet in an official capacity don't react at all. Probably because they are professionals.
Yeah.
Okay.
Being treated in this way is definitely, if anyone is paying attention, she's keeping it together, but it's mildly triggering, just a little.
I think Rushk would notice and just kind of puts a hand on your back without saying anything.
Yeah, just keep walking.
So eventually you are shown to your rooms. They're pretty nice, but kind of small.
Private from each other?
Mm-hmm. Private from each other. They have a bed, a desk, like a cupboard shelf kind of thing for you to put your effects in. But that's mostly it. They're, like a nice but kind of cramped quarter hotel. It has been very obviously prepared ahead of you arriving, as the sheets do not smell like freshly laundered, but like they have been washed. So it's probably
Mhm.
they set these rooms up when the expedition party left, and sometime after that, because they just assumed that you would be back. And the fact that they have the number correct means they were probably in some way or other in contact with Taltree.
That makes sense.
But yeah, there's
What's the name of our aid?
I was really hoping that you weren't gonna ask
So sorry.
me that.
All right, I'll give you a name. Drow names use X's and Z's, right? And S's?
And Y's and L's.
Zisel. There you go. X,
There you
Y, X, Y, Z, E, L.
How about we go with Chesda?
Perfect.
I'm gonna type that in a
Ches. All right.
So inside in the cupboard is various like generic-ish clothing, things that you can wear probably until they launder the stuff you have. But I mean, you lost your cart with all your shit in it, so. So she gives you a minute to get set up in your rooms. You can take however long you want, and then she waits patiently outside in the hallway and says, "When you're ready, I will conduct you to the baths."
Sorry, really quick question.
Yes.
If we lost, do we still have like our personal items, like bags and stuff we would have had on ourselves, or is everything gone?
Anything you could have been reasonably expected to carry on your person, you have.
Okay.
Everything else is gone unless you spend a fate point to tell me that you managed to save it.
I'm just wondering. I'm trying to decide what she would have done with the spider that she had, if she would have just let it go down into
Were you keeping that in like a bag of holding or something?
Yeah, it was. So I guess probably she would have had it on her. Never mind.
I'd still have it on.
I was going to say, I
Yeah.
don't think Xastra was traveling with much she wouldn't carry on her person anyway.
Yeah.
I think the spider's something you'd have to spend a fate point to declare you lost.
But I did not.
Yeah.
That's fair.
You just lose it and then tell me, and then I'd be like, all right, okay. I know that Rushk spent a fate point to say that she managed to hang on to her medicinal effect. So Rushk has all of her luggage. She's been carrying it the whole time, and definitely looks like that was not an issue for her, and she's fine, even though she's
I'm
woman.
Totally fine. So I assume once everybody's gotten set up, Rushk will just be the first to ask. Chesta, forgive me for insinuating that these are anything less than perfect, but I do have to know, are the baths private?
There's a communal bathing area that I'll be showing you to, but if you are... And she kind of like has like a hint of like, like a parent making fun of a child kind of thing, like tone of voice. She says, if you're particularly shy, a private bath can be made available for you.
Rushk swallows her pride and asks for the private bath.
She bows slightly and says, of course, I'll prepare one for you. I can take you there right now. You can do things first. Just let me know whenever you would like to go and wash.
Are you going to say something?
Before we go to the baths, I would like to get out the sending stone I have for Sassoon Fairlight.
For who? Oh, for the girl at
the temple.
At the temple. Okay. So you turn on your sending stone, and she picks up a moment later, and she says, "Yes, Xastra, it's excellent to hear from you. Are you doing well? Are you troubled?"
We are doing well. We've just made it to Dareleft. The situation here seems quite dire, but I felt I should update you since we have arrived.
Well, I have mixed feelings receiving your news. I'm happy that you've made it to Dareleft without incident, but we did know ahead of time that things in Dareleft might be quite dire, so it is not a surprise, but it is still unfortunate nonetheless.
It is quite unfortunate. We are soon to be introduced to the Senate, and then I can update you on the political situation.
I would be very interested in learning anything you know about how the political system of Dareleft works. Of course, as well as their defenses, what their military looks like, their food situation, their medical supplies, and most importantly, are they worshipping any gods?
course. It seems like they are in quite a bad state right now.
That is understandable. Please do everything you can.
Of course.
Once again, your service as a Silver Hair Knight is invaluable to us, Xastra. May the lady light your path.
She puts the sending stone away and then goes to seek the baths.
Okay. Does anybody have anything they want to do before they go get their bath on?
Nope. Rushk will notably not put on the, other clothing, but just be in her own clothes, ready to go to the bath.
Okay. So another of the Hostievale butlers takes you, Roosh, specifically to an area on the side of the baths. It looks like a place that you're supposed to walk through, once you're done bathing. She notes that this area has much higher water temperature than the communal bath, so it might sting when you get into it, and be careful of that. But basically, they're self-contained, kind of blocky structures, sort of like a shower. And when you open them up, up to waist height, basically, there is a structure that you get into. You just open a door and get into it. You pull a little lever and water comes down. There's a little chair inside this box you sit in, and it fills up to about where your neck is. So it just lets you get a deep soak in private where you can keep all of the heat in. She mentions again that it is quite warm, so try not to stay in it for too long. She'll come back and check after a little while to make sure that you haven't, gone unconscious and started to drown. That would be very embarrassing.
Me into a soup.
Sous eating her.
Rushk will, considering that she is aware that she's committed a sort of faux pas, express a great deal of gratitude for being allowed to use the private bath.
May kind of waves her off, and she says, "It's nothing of the matter. I serve House Vale, and we have been tasked with providing you whatever services you require."
Rushk nods and waits for privacy before beginning her whole thing.
Her whole thing. Do you want to describe her whole thing for the audience, or is that for you?
Yeah, we can describe the whole thing for the audience. All right. So Rushk is, I'll just run down. Rushk is at a first glance, kind of unassuming. She's a very tired woman, and she is dressed in such a way that almost all of her skin is covered, like turtleneck, gloves, long sleeves, long skirt, and socks, shoes. She's basically the only part of her that is visible is the upper part of her neck and her face. As she starts to undress, it becomes a little more assuming. Rushk is covered head to toe in a very large number of very brutal looking scars. On top of that, though difficult to tell through the clothing, Rushk is very, very thin. You can see her ribs through her skin. She is not the picture of health. She is dangerously unhealthy. And with some effort, she gets into the bath.
So the bath is quite warm. It is the temperature of sitting in boiling water, more or less. But it doesn't hurt the way you thought it would. And in fact, despite the particulars of your anatomy, it actually feels really good. You wonder where this bath has been your entire life.
I will absolutely have to inquire about the building materials and the methodology behind it.
So while you are becoming a very bony soup, everyone else moves to the public bath, and it is exactly what it says on the tin, a public bath. There's an area where you draw buckets of water and you wash yourself off of your grime and whatnot. And then it is just a large central pool, decorated quite well with a raised ceiling so that the water vapor is not just sitting in your face. And it's in use. You get the feeling that perhaps it is used at various types of the day, various times of the day, depending on who's around and what their shift is. But there are already a few Drow women lounging around the bath, and they don't really seem to pay too much attention to you as you come in, although they do, wave politely at you. The water is quite warm. It smells just a little bit of sulfur. It's probably piped in from some sort of underground spring that must be separate from the rest of Derelef because it has not been contaminated by the seawater. It's fantastic. Do you talk among yourselves? Do anything other than just get clean and soak?
I don't think so. I don't know if at this point I think Daelia is just keeping to herself. Just feels kind of weird about everything that's happened today.
Like, what's your reactions to being in a very nice looking public bath in the middle of a castle on top of a stone pillar that is a city of the Underdark filled with Drow?
It's fine. It's fine. Everything's fine. Everything's great. Not anxiety inducing at all.
Okay. You all get out. You get the clothes that you had on have been taken from you. Except for Rushk. You kind of had a better handle on your outfit, but a maid is there waiting to collect them from you.
Rushk wants her clothing laundered, is clearly like mulling over something in her head, and says, or asks if the maid can come back to Rushk's room, and the clothing will be outside the door in just a moment.
The maid clearly doesn't understand why you can't just hand the laundry to her now, but she's been instructed to do whatever the surface dwellers want. So she assumes this is just some kind of weird thing that humans do. And it's like, oh, of course, I will come get them in a moment.
Rushk is mortified. Goes back to her room, and, when nobody's in the hall, just puts the clothing in a folded pile outside the door, shuts and locks the door.
Oh.
Okay. So the rest of you, you have clothing made available to you. They are nice. Local cloth. It's kind of a very breathable cotton-esque fiber. Those of you who've seen Drow clothing before would be very used to. It's cut a little more modestly than the typical Drow outfit, probably because this is clothing made for you as guests. It is still more revealing than you would want it to be, but you do have the option to layer it. I guess except for Xastra, who's a freak.
Yeah. I think she probably has her own formal wear in her bag.
Okay.
Which is probably more revealing than what they've given me.
Of course, naturally. Again, Xastra, you freak.
It's important to show off the chest scar.
That's what it's for.
Yeah.
Space scar.
So do you manage to make yourself vaguely comfortable in the clothing, Rushk?
Not even a little bit.
Oh.
Rushk, is just... Go ahead.
No, you first.
Rushk just stands in the room and has, the clothing pulled out of the closet and is staring at it, turns it around, turns it the other way, and it's like a fucking mesh tank top or some shit. I don't know. Absolutely not.
Okay. So do you find a way to cover up more, or are you going with, bare arms?
Rushk is waiting. Rushk is going to stay in her room.
So there's a bit of a kerfuffle that ends with a discussion between Xastra, Daelia, and the maids over Rushk's effects and Rushk's unwillingness to come out of her room.
Oh, God.
That is ultimately solved by having to very quickly and magically clean Rushk's clothes.
So sorry.
They were going to launder them in a conventional way, but they do have to get a mage from the Guild
over and over and
Arcana
over and over again
to come to House of Vale to clean them.
Magical vacuum smell all over it.
Rushk is beyond mortified. Rushk is like, if she could drop dead on the spot, then she would.
Incredible.
Rushk is back in a clean version of her normal clothes. Daily, I assume you're wearing what has been provided?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, she's kind of taking advantage of the fact that she doesn't have to wear sunscreen, which is nice. So she's kind of just less covered up than she normally would be.
Doesn't have to wear long sleeves.
It's
a
true.
treat for Dahlia's.
Yep.
Ink has also been bathed. Somebody
Aw.
gave him a nice scrub and shampoo. He is looking quite elegant and very fluffy. So
Boy.
again, Chesda is the one that conducts you. This time she leads you out of Houseville and down through the city. This is very surprising. You would have figured that a source of government would be near the Queen's residence, if not inside of it. So you go back down from the Sapphire Star, through the Silver Stair, through the Embrace, and down into one of the second largest portion of the city, referred to as the Body. This is where the industrial type buildings are, forges and smithies and that kind of thing. And the makeup of Dereleft becomes much more cosmopolitan here. Instead of being primarily just Drow, you also see faces of other races. You see Durgar, you see Svirfneblin, and you see some monstrous races. There's goblins, there's a couple of gnolls milling about.
Gnolls. What are Svirfneblin?
Svirfneblin and
They're
Durgar.
deep
Svirfneblin are
gnomes.
deep gnomes, and
Oh.
Durgar are deep dwarves.
Yeah. I love the word Svirfneblin. It's so cute.
So she introduces you to two other major features. The first is a series of terrace farms that start in this level and move down to the lower level, referred to as the Breath. Obviously, most of them, the ones on the lower levels, are completely submerged in seawater. But the ones up here, you see they are being very busily tended by the various groups of people you've met so far. And then she takes you to what seems to be an arena. It is a large circular structure constructed out of a series of pillars with the ramps between. You know what Colosseums look like. And she brings you in through the entrances that take you to the floor of it. And it is quite strange because this is very obviously a place for Drow blood sport. But here it is being used for official meetings. The floor has 25 seats arranged in front of a large throne-ish structure, seated upon which is Nyara. The 25 seats have various official and powerful-looking Drow and a few non-Drow sitting in them. They're loosely grouped into about 5 sets of places, and the people inside of them are whispering to each other. The stands around the arena are filled with what looks like less well-off Drow. This is like the more lower houses and common Drow, including a few non-Drow laborers. It is interesting that Dereleft has chosen to force its senate to descend Dereleft in order to do political activities, and that the people of Dereleft look down on its government.
Rushk loves this. Rushk is just beaming at all of this.
Rushk is like, yes, yes,
grovel.
This is slightly surprising to Xastra, but I do not think she dislikes this.
What do you think about this, Daelia?
I mean, it's kind of a weird in-between of, what she's already had, experiences with growing up, but then also obviously very different from any of the Drow societies that she's ever interacted with. It's kind of in the middle. Not surprising for the situation, but also, I don't know. Democratization is a good thing.
You're sort of off to the side, sort of waiting in the wings. You imagine that you will become a point of business at something. Chesda basically explains the groups to you. They're based on the distance from the throne where Nyara is seated is basically based on their importance, more or less, with the less powerful group in the back and then the more powerful groups in the front. The ones at the back is composed almost entirely of non-Drow, and she explains to you that they are the Free Union of Peoples, led by their party speaker, a enormous 8.5-foot tall woman made from muscle and fur, the gnoll known as Brash Vandal.
Amazing.
Incredible name. Incredible name.
Accompanied by a male Drow by the name of Narast, a Svirfneblin woman named Gaknet, a Durgar man named Adnir, a very perplexed-looking human named Dirk Falcott, and a small but excitable goblin woman known as Mule Dirt Scratcher. Ahead of them is the Guild Arcana, also known as House Duet. There is a chair that is empty, and the other 4 are filled by 3 drow women and 1 drow man. They are the essentially mages guild of the city. It is possible that one of the chair belongs to someone who is helping keep up the magical stasis that is slowing the sea from falling into Derelict. Ahead of them is a group of entirely male drow, which is quite surprising. She refers to them as the Advocacy Party. Apparently, they were quite instrumental in the formation of Derelicht's government, owing to the fact that they are allowed to be in charge of Derelicht's self-defense forces. And of course, they were the ones who insisted that Nyara be crowned princess.
Oh, interesting.
Ahead of them are a group of extremely mean-looking drow women.
This makes
And
sense.
ahead of them is a mixed group of drow women and men that she refers to as the Peacekeepers. It's almost entirely members of House Zoath, who are a very moderate faction. They almost never vote for or against anything. And lastly, directly in front of the stage is people that you notice, or that you recognize. Along with a woman you've never seen before, Taltree and Zunan are there, representatives for House Uvail. So you kind of stand there, like waiting for the wheels of government to spin. And Nyara announces the session of government. And a speaker for the assembly as a whole asks if there is any business to come up out of the floor. And one of the advocacy party, Catherine Everharn, stands and says, I have a motion that I would like to bring to the floor. We call for the immediate and swift execution of the following.
Oh boy.
Ray Millarn, party speaker of the Separationists. Alir Baidzid, representative of the Separationists. Zisindra Baidzid, representative of the Separationists. Sibir, representative of the Separationists. And Werda Eilat, representative of the Separationists, including all of the members of their houses and known associates.
Boy.
Jesus Christ!
No.
One of the women
Just
from the
like
Guild
home.
Arcana raises her hand, and Vice Frello says, motion seconded. The speaker says the motion has been seconded. The proposal will now turn to the floor for discussion.
Oh my god.
Ray Millarn, one of the Separationists, stands up and says, once again, I will remind you that this court can put no one to death without the presence of Queen Celestia Vale. And the last 17 times you have made this proposal, Tatharin, it has failed.
God.
They fight
Can't
among
fault a man
themselves.
for trying.
They fight among themselves in this way for some time, arguing that as separationists, they will only do harm to Derelict. The separationists put forward their belief that the only way to ensure that Derelict will be safe in the future is if they return to Law's Fold, etc., etc. It comes to a vote which almost overwhelmingly passes, except that Nyara is forced to use his power of veto to keep them from being executed on the spot. Again, this is the 18th time that House Yavail has had to do this.
Oh my god.
Incredible.
Boy.
Just like home.
There is some minor business. There are a few things put forward by the Free Union of Peoples, mostly dealing with how to continue to procure food, and given the state of Derelict and how the foot is entirely buried under seawater, and as well as operations to keep the seawater from coming to flood where they are now. To that end, Taltree motions to your group and says, in order to deal with these issues, amongst others, we of course brought in the aid we sought to bring from Waterdeep, and so we will introduce them to the house now. And she sort of waves you forward to introduce yourselves to the political arm of Derelict. Introduce yourselves to the political arm of Derelict.
Are they speaking in Drow or?
Taltree has moved to common
Okay,
in order
okay.
to accommodate you.
All right, yeah.
Mhm.
Well, if neither of the other ones go first, Rushk will stand, give a curt bow, and say, "My name is Rushk. I am a doctor in the above ground city of Waterdeep. We are each of us members of the what is it, Waterdeep Council, Special Council,
Special Council of Waterdeep.
We are each of us members of the Special Council of Waterdeep, which could be considered the governing body, much like your Senate here is the governing body of Dereleft. We have arrived with what is Vajra? She's Blackstaff. What's her official? What's a way to talk her up, rather?
Isn't she an archmage?
Yeah, she's an Archmage, and you can refer to her as the Blackstaff. People know who the Blackstaff is.
Really? Even the Dereleft people? What?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Then I would do that, absolutely. We have arrived with the Blackstaff, as well as several others, in order to address the cleft in the ceiling of the chasm. We've yet to have a chance to investigate, but hopefully we will be able to do so soon. I want to welcome you. I want to thank you all for welcoming us into your city, and I hope that we are able to assist you, and we are eager to assist you in every way we possibly can.
The
Rushk will bow.
Separationists make a big deal of pretending not to understand you, and continue to do so until a translator is provided to them.
Of course.
Everyone else is more or less amenable to your existence, largely because you happen to have brought some very powerful people with you. They all seem to understand and respect the name Blackstaff, except for the Free Union of Peoples. Brash Vandal, the Knoll, stands from her seat and towers over the group, and she points at you and says, "You! Shorty!
Me?
Yeah! You ever kill a man?"
Well, by trade I am a doctor, so I suppose that during my time on the battlefield, many a man has, unfortunately, passed under my care.
I can't trust nobody that hasn't killed nobody. Can you? If you killed somebody,
I can assure you that the vast majority of my companions have taken lives.
I'm talking about you specifically.
Rushk continues smiling for a moment, but then that very convincing facade slowly drains away, and she says very solemnly, "Yes, I have."
She scrutinizes your face for a few moments and then begins laughing loudly and clapping her hands. And she says, "That right there is the look of a killer. I can tell you mean business." And then she sits back down without further comment. So the rest of her group looks embarrassed, but she high fives Mule.
High five.
Incredible.
You can watch her put an arm around Nirast, the Drow representative, and sort of pull him in really close. And she starts talking to him about, you see what she would look like when she said, "Have you killed somebody?" Put out, but this has probably happened to him more than once.
That's so funny.
Very likely.
Really cute.
So the advocacy party speaker, Tatharin Everharn, stands and says, "Would you please detail your plans for Dereleft? We would like to vote on whether or not we agree that this is actionable and useful to the city."
I think Xastra will stand up. Also, I feel like it's very important to describe her outfit right now because that's very
Okay.
important.
Oh,
Right.
good.
She's wearing a collared shirt that is unbuttoned most of the way. And then it has pretty flowy sleeves that end at about the elbow. And then she's also wearing a pair of loose pants that are slit up both sides.
Yeah.
Is this because I haven't
and
given
this-
you a ballroom scene? Is that why you wanted to describe your
Yes.
dress?
This is it is ever so slightly sheer.
Leaves enough to the
It's important.
imagination.
Yeah. It does show off the sick scar she has from getting hit by some kind of spell just straight through the chest. I think this is very
Nice.
important.
It's very important.
So then, I am Xastra Telarr. I am a representative of the Silverhair Knights of Eilistraee. Our plan for your city is to seal the hole in the roof of your cavern using a combination of arcane and divine magic.
The
We intend to
separationists
stitch it
interrupt
together.
you to start booing you after you
God.
mentioned that you are a paladin of Eilistraee.
Oh
And
my
they do
god.
this loudly until one of the peacekeepers turns around and throws a knife at them.
Jesus
This makes
Christ.
perfect sense. I am also pointedly ignoring them.
As
You know,
one
are we sure that the Drow should have representative democracy? Are we positive about this?
Yeah, because
They
there's
seem really
work,
into it.
more or less.
They seem
There's
really
more-
into it.
there's more people here who aren't into law than are.
It's true. It's true.
So this is fine for now.
So you bring Vajra on stage to explain the complicated mess of spells that are going to be required, as well as that she will likely need the assistance of the Guild Arcana, and so of course acknowledges House Doet. And then having explained your plan, they say, all right, well, we will vote on whether we believe this is agreeable. So they go around representative by representative to ask, are you in favor of the proposed plan? And one by one, every single one of them says no.
Oh my
They
god.
entirely and unanimously vote down your plan. Afterwards, the Speaker for the Senate says this concludes today's business, and this session is now dismissed. So, off stage, you are met by Nyara and Taltree. And Taltree is grimacing, but she says, that would much better than I thought it would.
Oh,
Xastra tilts her head. This makes perfect sense.
She says, I know that you are probably disheartened by them unanimously rejecting your proposal, but quite frankly, that's one of the better outcomes that we projected.
What were some of the just to entertain my own curiosity, what were some of the worst outcomes?
The separationists would join with the advocacy party in calling for your deaths.
I see. But Yara would have been able to veto that, yes?
Oh,
Well, yes, of
this
course.
is of course assuming they didn't try and kill us directly.
yeah.
Exactly.
I
It's
see.
like you've never dealt with Drow politics before.
Rushk just smiles at Xastra. Yes, it is almost like that, isn't it?
She's clearly enjoying this.
My god. Anyways, so what is our plan from here then? If that was the best possible scenario, I'm assuming we have to take some kind of different tack to make this happen, or go beyond this, or something of that nature.
So, again, it seems that some of you do not grasp the finer points of Drow politics. What they are all waiting for is a bribe. No one votes for anything positive in the Senate unless they stand to gain from it in some way. If you could go around to all of the groups and explain to them how they can benefit from this, aside from the obvious of the city no longer being in danger of being drowned completely, then they will likely vote for you if you present the motion to them again.
I see.
This makes sense.
So perhaps then it would be best if each of us handled the groups most in line with our own lifestyle.
Undoubtedly. For something on this scale, though, we do require a unanimous vote. So unfortunately, that does mean you will need to meet with the separationists as well.
I
Maybe
see.
let me handle that one. I would say maybe.
If anybody can be trusted with it, it's you. As a bit of an aside, Nyara, how are you feeling? I realize that Xastra did something rather brash, and if you are in need of any medical care, I am at your service.
I'm doing okay. Thank you for asking. I just it was a lot all at once, and I got kind of overwhelmed. But
Interesting. I see. I must admit that I don't quite understand the mechanics of what happened, but if you're presenting any symptoms, I can address them as best as possible.
Nyara beams at you with his brilliant little smile and is like, of course, Miss Rushk, maybe I can come by your room later to make sure that I'm okay? And he just like looks at Taltree for approval. She just kind of like more or less sort of makes a very small shrug.
That's funny. That is also cute. Of course, I will. I assume I will be in my room. I do not have any other plans aside from I would like to meet with Miss Vandal.
You want to meet with Brash Vandal?
I do, yes.
She's like, well, she has a residence here in the body. I can point you toward it. It's by the steelwork.
If you would be so kind. I hope you don't mind if I take my leave of the group here. Daelia, a pleasure. Rushk nods and then doesn't acknowledge Xastra and keeps going.
So it sounds like Faye wants to go talk to Brash Vandal.
Yeah, we don't have to do this right now. I was just, putting forward my interest.
What would the rest of you like to do? So you're in Dereleft. You can go do whatever you want in Dereleft. You do need to meet with all of the 5 groups that are not the House of Valley Loyalists and convince them to vote for your plan. You can also just look around Dereleft to see other things that are going on, perhaps. Just meet the people, do whatever you would like. What do you want to do?
Is there any sort of meeting area of just where a bunch of people would be conversing essentially to sort of get the lay of what is going on here, ground level basis?
Yeah, there's lots of plazas in various places, especially the food restaurant areas. As you know, most civilized societies, people do not do their own cooking. They go to restaurants in order to be fed. So it's very easy to just hang around there and listen to people unwind from their days as they eat. Mostly the things that people talk about is stuff that's immediately going on. Obviously what the water level is at now, what they expect it to be tomorrow. There are 2 major efforts besides the magical one to keep the sea from pouring in. There are groups that are building essentially sandbag walls in order to prevent the sea level from entering into the area you are now, to divert the waves of the water away from, the level you're on. And then also there is a very dangerous group, a very dangerous task where, because the water coming in swirls around the column at a very high speed, right? So it's quite a dangerous whirlpool. But there is still useful stuff buried underneath the salt water. So there is a concerted effort to attempt to fish things out of the lower level. Because if you can get a cleared supply off the bottom of Dereleft, that has useful stuff in it. Right? Because that's where most of Dereleft's farming was. That's where things came in. But you do have to enter a whirlpool in the fucking Underdark. So it's if they can get back 1 crate a day, it is considered a successful operation.
Damn. Okay. Essentially, I'm just trying to sort of get an idea of what some of these groups might want before going into a meeting, I guess. Just sort of be prepared.
A common undercurrent among the various political groups is everybody feels uneasy because they haven't seen Queen Celessa in a while. They feel like that if there's going to be something as important as outsiders coming in and proposing something, it would be best if the Queen were to be present. And so the fact that she's not, it's does she have something better to do than worry about the safety of the city? And then also where you are now, there's a mix of the Free Union of Peoples and the kind of people who go along with the advocacy party. Most non-Drow kind of want to leave Dereleft. They don't really want to continue living here. However, the fact that they make up the major amount of physical labor of Dereleft, they're necessary. So it's a kind of strange mix where Dereleft doesn't want them to leave, and they can profit from Dereleft, but they also don't want to live here because they originally brought to Dereleft as,
slaves.
captured indentured servant. Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, they have rights now, but, like, you still have to go to work and see, like, Drow who would have happily stabbed you for fun back in the day.
That's fine. Normal.
Then the Advocacy Party are interested in anything that improves the standing of male Drow in Dereleft. It's likely that if you could offer them something that would give them one over on the women, they would be super happy with it. But also the Advocacy Party is threatened by the Separationists because, like, you know, like, they are all Drow. Like, if they could go back to Lolth's service, like, you know, the men would be kind of cooked. So it could be why they begin every session by calling for the death of the Separationist Party.
Imagine.
Xastra, what are you up to?
I would like to similarly get the lay of the land, but in a higher end establishment.
Okay, so you go up to the Silver Stair. So you can uncover some hearsay involving the Separationists. While they do want to return the city to Lolth's embrace, they're worried about it. Lolth is not exactly a forgiving person. So even if they did turn over the entire city of Dereleft to her, there's no guarantee that they themselves would escape punishment. So they mostly argue among themselves about the best way to return Dereleft to Lolth in a way that they will profit from and not a way that will get them, you know, boat murdered.
Yeah.
So they're the hardest to pin down on what you could offer them, but, like, those are the things they're worried about. They want to profit and return things back to the way they were, but they also understand that doing so might get them all killed. Okay.
I think it would be really funny if I'm the one who goes to talk to them.
Oh my god. I mean, I have an idea for how to spin it, but it's up to you.
I will have to think about this.
Chew on that while we go to meeting Brash Vandal. She is at work at the Steelworks, which is a big forge where they turn pig iron into steel. She is one of the bellows workers, as she is quite large and quite strong. So she is able to work it for a long time. There's a whole group of them operating a large hand bellows that keeps the forge at the proper temperature. So she will meet with you, but she doesn't want to stop working.
Okay. Interesting. Miss Vandal,
It's the first time I've been called Miss.
Do you dislike it?
I don't dislike it at all.
Well, Miss Vandal, then, I must admit, my curiosity was piqued when you seemed so intent to discover whether or not I've killed someone. Why do you place such importance on slaughter?
I wouldn't call it slaughter. I mean, slaughter is something you do for fun. Killing is something you do for work or for a cause. See, I can't take stock with somebody who's not willing to get their hands dirty for what they believe in.
I think Rushk smiles. Rushk says, "So you've killed for a cause, then?"
I sure have. I was right there when the Hundred Slayer put the end of the Civil War.
The Hundred Slayer. You'll forgive me if I'm not familiar with the terminology or the mythology of Dereleft. Who is or what is the Hundred Slayer?
She does that barking hyena laugh, and she's like, the Hundred Slayer is the most important and famous person in Dereleft. She's what you call the Queen, Celessa Yavail.
Interesting, okay.
It was us and those puny little twink boys what put her on the throne.
Rushk doesn't laugh like that, just clears her throat. And then am I to understand that the term Hundred Slayer has something to do with a feat she accomplished during the Civil War? Do I have that right?
She laughs some more and says, yeah, it's how many heads she had to take to stop the fighting.
Damn.
Jesus Christ.
Incredible.
Interesting. Well, I admit that I've come here for a second reason. You seem the most in touch with this city out of everyone on the council. I would like your impressions of the others on that council and your impressions of what they're trying to accomplish. And of course, this won't go unrewarded. I am, as I mentioned many times before, a doctor by trade. If there is anything that ails you or your comrades, I am more than happy to assist in caring.
I've got warehouses full of people that need care. So if you're willing to let me put you through some hard work, I'd be happy to tell you whatever I know.
I'm more than familiar with hard work.
Like you.
And I find you quite agreeable as well.
So she gives you the lowdown on what is half gossip, half probably useful information about the other parties. First, she lets you know that she would have wanted to vote for you, but she can't do anything that compromises the position of her constituents, more or less, the Free Union of Peoples. They need some kind of concession that will improve the standing of those who live in Dereleft and provide a means for those who want to leave Dereleft to leave. Basically, she figures that if the Free Union of Peoples were to go on a strike, which is something they have done before, it grinds Dereleft to a halt. But she doesn't want to be a necessary cog. She wants to be one of the hands turning the wheel. And she thinks that, like all of the other non-Drow people in Dereleft, deserve that privilege. So while her efforts are what puts Celeste on the throne, obviously, like most of Drow society is content to lean on the people, on the backs of the people doing the actual work. So if you can cut some kind of deal for them and arrange some safety for people who want to leave, or like make things good enough that people wouldn't mind staying, that's what she wants. The Guild Arcana is an insane collection of people she's never met before and likely won't ever. The leader of House Toet is known as the High Arcana. She's like the Archmage for the area. Literally no one has ever seen her. Nobody knows what she looks like. She's the only member of House Toet, and they don't understand how only one person can be a house and still be treated so well. So she's like, there's got to be something fucked up with that.
Interesting.
She thinks the advocacy party is a bunch of selfish little twinks, but they do have their uses. And she gives you a very lascivious smile.
Incredible.
They're the ones who help push for the structure of government as the way it is now. But they're basic. She said the way she describes it is they're like the women except with the men. Like they just want anything that makes them look good.
Yep.
She thinks the separationists are all assholes, and if she was allowed to, she would kill them.
Rushk notes that down.
She doesn't have a firm lead on the peacekeepers. They never vote for or against anything. They largely go along with whatever the majority is already voting for. But they have a considerable amount of power, and for some reason, the richer Drow are scared of them. She has no idea why.
Interesting. That's very fascinating. Ms. Vendel, this has been enlightening. Thank you very much for your time. I will be staying at House Yavail. I don't know if you would prefer that I change my accommodations to wherever you would have me. If you would prefer, if you have room, a private room, I could move towards the warehouses you mentioned and begin assisting your people. If not, then call upon me whenever you need me.
Of course. The sooner you get started, the more likely my opinion of you is to change for the better.
Of course, yes. Before I leave, just one more question. About how big are each of these factions on the council? Are we talking 10, 20, hundreds, thousands? I admit I'm not familiar with the population of Dereleft.
Well, the Free Union, that's us. As far as number of bodyguards goes, we're easily the largest, but we don't have access to the same kind of power that the other ones do. The Guild Arcana is only a handful of people, but they're all really strong mages, so we kind of let them do what they want, especially considering they're keeping the rift from falling in around our ears. The other factions, as far as I can tell, are evenly matched. It's just a bunch of drow sitting around jerking each other off in their little fancy houses up the way.
Interesting. Very interesting. I believe I'll have more questions later, but for now I am quite fatigued from my journey here. I will return in the morning. Rushk stops herself. Whatever counts for morning. I will return after I sleep.
Rash Vandal's laughter follows you out of the steelworks.
She's amazing.
Incredible.
I love her.
Daelia or Xastra, you can go next. What do you want to do? Who do you want to talk to? What would you like?
So my sort of thought with how to angle it with the separatists is kind of go from the idea that essentially if we can help get the city not in a chaotic, helpless state, that it would give them a better position to sort of try and influence other people in the city to go back under Lolth's control, and instead of them coming from a weaker position to supplicate her, they have more of a quote-unquote bastion of support to use sort of as a, if you can even have a bargaining chip with Lolth, just be look, we have this group of people, instead of them coming to her and being please help us take return under you sort of thing.
That sounds like a good plan.
So I wasn't sure if anyone wanted to do something different or had any other ideas for how to go about that, but that was kind of my thought.
Okay. Do you want to go meet with a
I was gonna say, I feel like that's better than my idea, which is
just
threaten them incessantly that I will drag them all back to Waterdeep for.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, in that case, then yeah, I think she's gonna go try and find the. Oh gosh, what is their name? Trying to find Ray Millarn.
Okay. So you're on your way to House Millarn, and Chesda falls in behind you.
Okay.
With 4 or 5 other ostensibly maids of House Derelict. But you can tell from the way they walk that they are carrying some kind of weapon with them hidden underneath their clothing. And Chesda says, "My apologies, my lady, but Miss Taltree informed me that if you had to speak with the other faction leaders, that I would to accompany you and serve as your translator. Not to cast light on your ability to speak our language, of course, but more translate you to the customs of Derelict."
I appreciate it.
She pats her hip, if you know what I mean.
I appreciate it. I've had, experiences with other Drow cities, but obviously Derelict is its own unique situation. So I appreciate any sort of help you can give me in this. I know it's a little complicated around here.
It never hurts to walk among friends.
Of course. Is there anything in particular that is worth giving a heads up about just before we go in?
Make sure you drink the tea that's offered to you.
Okay.
Naturally, it is poisoned, so
of course.
She hands you a vial of something. Just drink this before we go in, because if you refuse to drink it, she will believe you are too weak to converse with.
Of course.
And of course, if it kills you, then your opinion's not worth hearing.
Yeah, of course. So yes. So this isn't too different from what I'm used to then.
So you head to House Millarn's estate. It is probably the nicest one in the Silver Stair. It is very opulently decorated, and the design of the structure could be considered avant-garde, even among the Drow. They probably enjoyed significant standing before Derelict became what it is today, and likely would have been in charge of the city if it were still a Lolth-sworn city.
Okay.
They make you stand around at the gate when you say that you're here to see Umre. And you have to wait there for a long time. You are standing outside for almost an hour before someone fetches you to bring you inside. They pat you down for weapons when you come in, and of course they find the hidden weapons, which are then returned to them. It is a very strange song and dance shuffle that is like normal among other Drow societies, so you just don't even bat an eye at it.
Yep.
Eventually you brought into a sitting room, and it is a place that seems to be designed to be intimidating. It is a large structure, like decorated with almost offensive art that is garish and seems to assault your senses, but placed in such a way that it is pleasing aesthetically, simply in the geometric shapes it forms with the support columns of the room. The actual tea table itself is quite small and brings you in very close. And when you sit down, you notice that your chair is significantly smaller than Umre's, making her capable of glaring down at you. You have tea with her. There are a variety of local snacks that are served with your tea, and of course, when they pour it out for you, it is an almost acidic purple that tastes like it should absolutely kill you.
Good. And yeah, she would
Umre
have taken the antidote before going in.
Ray has poured something completely different from the rest of you. It is a very sweet-smelling, soft amber-colored drink, and no mention is given to the fact that she has gotten something different than the rest of you.
Of course.
So she glares down her nose at you and says, well,
Party speaker, I come to you as a representative of the Council of Waterdeep to your fine home. It is my pleasure to be in your presence.
Of course it's your pleasure to be in my
time.
presence. But what are you here for?
I'm here to help you with your unfortunate little situation with the Goddess of Spiders. So it seems like you're in a bit of a weak position, which I must say is very embarrassing on account of anyone who's paying attention into the politics of this city just being looked down on by this advocacy party of men, and people calling for your execution, which, would normally be reasonable, but it just seems like you're not in a great position where you're at.
She's grinding her teeth as she says, I understand that's how it must look to an outsider.
Then enlighten me what sort of standing you have if you seem to not be as weak of a position as I seem to think you do.
Well, for as much as they say horrible things about us, they are completely incapable of removing us from our seat of power. As you can see, the House Millarn mansion is immaculate and undisturbed. So things are not quite dire for us after all.
I mean,
it is very well maintained.
Being in the position where you're not immediately put to death because a queen is missing and having a keep that is kept nice from the backbreaking efforts of those who work under you, I don't know if I would necessarily say that's the best position.
Darling, you are merely arguing semantics. Could we please move this meeting on a little bit further? What can you offer me, or shall I end this conversation early?
It's more so how taking care of the dripping hole of ocean coming through into your city would make your position better for joining underneath the Goddess of the Spiders. As you know, obviously, if you went crawling back to Lolth in the situation that you're at, there is almost no question that all of you would be punished in various ways of the way that she sees fit. But if you were in a position where, the world wasn't falling apart around you and you had the potential to be able to take back more of your political power that you enjoyed before the Civil War, I assume, you would have the ability to, make other people see where you're coming from and not be under threat of the world ending, essentially. So do you sort of see where I'm coming with this? I know I'm trying to talk slow for you.
So your insulting mannerisms, as well as pointing out the flaws in her current position, I think work on her so she's like willing to hear your point.
Okay.
So I'm going to set the difficulty of your charisma check at 4.
Okay. Alrighty. 4. I'm trying to think. Would I be able to, not rolling it, would I be able to use False Drow Spy as an aspect on top of rolling my charisma?
Yeah, if you need to add fate points, that's one you could lean on.
Just in case. All right. Okay, yeah, I will definitely need that because that is, I can do math. So that puts me at a 3.
Okay, yeah, so you spend a fate point
Cool.
invoking your knowledge of Drow politics and subterfuge.
Yes.
And
Alright, cool.
she seems very put out because she does not want to have to agree to an outsider, but like you kind of have called her bluff. While she's holding on to the power she has now, she has no way to continue to secure it in the future, especially if something were to happen to Derelict.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
she says, I see the wisdom in your rather harsh and blunt and uncultured words. And
Living among outsiders it opens you up to new ideas.
yes, if only it opened you up to new and better ones. I will take what you have to say to heart, and I will discuss it with the other representatives. And we shall see if you don't have a more favorable response at the next meeting.
Of course. Well, enjoy the rest of your time in your lovely little keep. I will take my leave.
Would you like to take some of your refreshments with you? Perhaps you can choke on these biscuits later.
Oh, thank you for your paltry hospitality. I will. And she'll.
So bitchy. It's I always forget Daelia's like this because she's so polite around us.
I mean, it's Drow. The thing is, the only experience we have is with Xastra, who's just with all the good Drow, and then you have the rest of them who are not. And okay, so she'll take her leave, feeling pretty self-satisfied with how that went.
Once you leave the grounds, the maids bust out laughing because you ruffled her feathers really well.
I believe she got her fluff ruffled.
Xastra, what would you? I think we've got time for one more scene. So, Xastra, what would you like to do?
I would like to go talk to the person in charge of the advocacy party.
Okay, it's not hard to find. The advocacy party is confined to one house. That's why they get so many representatives from the same house. As masculine power is a new thing in Derelict. It's not very common in Drow society at all. So you are surprisingly given a very cordial welcome. It's like they're falling all over themselves to look as cool as they can when you're around.
This makes perfect sense.
Extremely well-dressed men meet you at the gates. Without you even having to announce yourself, they take you immediately to their sitting room, which is quite nice. And they almost immediately bring to you Tatharin and Nilgoth Everharn, two very attractive drow men in their skimpiest possible attire.
Of course.
So they seat themselves on cushions next to you, and groups of drow servants begin bringing you fruit and drinks and other things on platters where you can recline from your couch and enjoy them. And they say, Miss Telarr, a pleasure to have you at our estate. What can we do for you today?
Well, after our disastrous vote today, I would like to see about getting you into a position where you would be willing to vote for my proposal.
I do love being maneuvered into a favorable position, Miss Telarr. What do you suppose that kind of thing might entail? I mean, I would love to give my support for a plan that obviously safeguards the future of Derelict, but the proposal you suggested is quite extreme. What can you offer to smooth our relationship?
Now, don't you think it would look very good for you if this whole situation got resolved under Nyara, the person that you got elected, well, his sister is away.
But we did also get his sister elected, and yet she is not here to see through this very important plan. So, as much as I would like to see young Nyara in charge of this sort of situation, I would feel better if I could know how the Queen herself stands. We haven't seen her in a while. It's troubling.
In that case, how about I look into that for you?
I would certainly put my heart at ease. Can I have you make a little wisdom roll for me?
Does a 2 do it?
He seems very scared at the concept of talking about the Queen having been missing and not being around. You know that the Free People's Union and the Advocacy Party are the ones who essentially helped solidify the authority of Celesta, and it likely took a heavy toll on them. So since, everyone respects Celesta as the Hundred Slayer, if she's not around to advocate for the male party, their standing becomes immediately more precarious. As while the Free Union of Peoples have tons of members and could be a credible threat, they don't have anything. They don't have priests. They don't have an army. They are nominally in charge of the forces of Derelict, but anyone could pay a Drow off. So they are intrigued by the possibility of giving Nyara more power and more control in the government, but they do really want their major sponsor to be okay. You need to figure out what has happened to the Queen.
So, if I come to you with news of the Queen, you will vote for my proposal?
If you bring me news of the Queen, Xastra, I will come to you.
Jesus Christ.
He gives a very forced smile and says, "Of course." Jesus fucking Christ. I don't know what I expected. This makes perfect sense.
They had to keep people from killing them somehow.
So she will pat him on the head and say, "If that is the case,
Good boy.
I will take my leave."
So you're on the way out when that cool little paladin aura you have that lets you know when there are evil outsiders nearby. You're passing one of the rooms when an overwhelming sense of evil miasma pours out of it.
Interesting.
It is choking and sweet, like far too much perfume.
Okay.
Would you like to stop investigate?
Can I get a fate point out of it?
I mean, I guess I'll let you have a fate point.
Okay. Then yes. I will seek the source of this corruption.
Okay. So you head through the door and through a large open air hallway. And at the end of that arcade is a room that the walls are mostly like curtains of silk that are very see-through. And inside you can see the figure of a male drow who radiates this sense of cloying sweetness. He is buried in a pile of undulating and undulating bodies. Various drow men and women who are swarmed all over him.
For him.
You can peel back the curtain to get a better look. You could just walk in and talk to him if you want, or you can leave. What do you want to do?
Oh, I'm just gonna walk in and talk to him.
Okay. So you walk in and you notice that while he's not particularly large, he is quite well muscled and wearing very little, as are the drow accompaniments.
Of course.
As you will. He holds a goblet in one hand, from which he is drinking what appears to be an endless selection of wine, as people come in from the wings to constantly refresh his glass. He has nothing but the brightest and most charming smile, which is so incredibly inviting. It is only the training of the Silver-Haired Knights that prevents you from stepping forward when he beams it at you.
Yeah, this seems right.
He speaks in a very melodious and honeyed voice that is difficult to pull yourself away from. And he says, Miss Telarr, it is my pleasure to meet you.
And who might you be?
I don't know that we should cross that road just yet. I'm sure you have an inkling of who I might be.
Certainly have some idea.
I'm quite flattered.
So, I assume you've made your presence known to me for a reason.
Well, I had been meaning to approach you at some point, but here I find you walking willingly into my parlor.
Well, since you have me, what is it you want?
I want nothing. For now, I am merely here to observe.
He just kind of stares at him.
What's with the glare? I mean, after all, it's your fault that I'm here.
My fault?
Was it not you who crushed that crystal?
Oh, I suppose.
And here you have given someone else a claim to my portfolio. You know, for us Drow deities, it really hurts, Xastra. It's a bit like an unexpected knife.
Well, that's just how Drow society runs.
Aren't you cute?
He smiles just a little bit.
So yes, for now I am here to do nothing but observe. But Derelift has piqued my interest in a way that is perhaps not favorable for you. And so now I merely provide a warning. And my warning is, I'm not the one you should be worried about.
Seems in line with things I have been told previously. I appreciate your warning, though.
Of course, I believe in fair play and other types of play.
I shall leave you to your companions.
Of course.
And she will bow slightly and excuse herself.
Kind of gestures at you with his cup as it's being filled by someone else. But yeah, I think that's where we'll call it today. Lots of things going on in Derelift. Drow Society is very interesting. And we'll see you all next week. Next week? Next 2 weeks? I don't know how often Ross posts this. Ross, can you just do a cool voiceover where you say how much time it is until the next episode? Great. Thanks. Love you. Bye-bye. See you all later, everybody.
Thanks, bye.
This is Ross Payton. Just letting you know the next episode of Drow and Dracoliches comes out in 2 weeks. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.